those of you fans, you ever walk through the pit area and wonder why the teams are just hanging out, sitting around, and they haven't put the engines together yet? They changed the compression ratio based on the thickness of the head gaskets. And that's why they wait until the last minute to make a head gasket call, which will adjust the compression ratio of the engine. That, in combination with the blower overdrive, determines cylinder pressure, which is critical to a nitro car. When you heard Dean Antonelli earlier talking about if we sit here for a while and the weather changes, we'll be completely out of our tune-up window. There are some small changes you can make once you leave the pit area and head up this way. But if the weather takes a big swing, or if you have to sit a long time, often you have to make major changes and you just don't have enough flexibility. And that's why the crew chiefs down there were saying, look, we would like to go now. And that's why you're seeing funny cars on the racetrack. Looks like Chad Green going to be up next on a solo. The Bond Coat Summit Racing Boxo Tools car. Currently sitting in the number 9 qualifying position, 397. The best run Chad Green has made to this point. Interesting, in Top Fuel, we had 3 drivers that had run in the 360s coming into the final session. We added 1. In Funny Car, we've got 3 drivers of the Cool Kids Club that have run in the 380s. That's Ron Capps, Matt Hagan, and Alexis DeJoria. And it remains to be seen whether we will be able to add 1 or more. Chad Green wouldn't mind putting his name on that list. If he did, he'd move himself up from the number 9 spot, at least to number 4. Ron Capps sits number 1 at 3.864. Body up as they're double checking everything on the Bond Coat car. The questions I get fairly regularly is just exactly what the procedure is when they do that. And we just double checked the stuff down on the starting line, and now we've got a staging beam that is hung on. They're going to shut Chad's machine down. And they held up for a second to go down and check that, and I'm not sure if that would have something to do with the angle of the sun over there or not, but checked it out. Everything checked out okay. They said, okay, fire up the car. Chad does the burnout, backs up, and, well, as you can see, even with nothing on the starting line, there's a bulb that's hanging on down there. And, of course, now it goes back out. I tell you, there've been, the weather stuff and a couple of weird things happened this weekend, but I don't think you can question the dedication of the NHRA, the men and women of the Safety Safari, the Franklin family, and everybody at the racetrack, how badly we wanted to put these cars on the racetrack and put on a show for you fans that bought tickets and came out here to support us. It would have been very easy about 3 hours ago when it was pouring down rain to go, that's it, set the fields, we'll see you tomorrow. But we put in the effort to come out here and perform for you fans that bought tickets. And I don't know. We're going to make it happen. I'm telling you, we are dedicated to putting in the work, and we're going to make it happen. Now, for Chad Green, anytime there's a situation like this where the car is shut off and it is not the team's issue, which was the case here with that beam hanging on, they have the choice to either plug in, fire up, stage up, and go, or they could move to the back of the session, let it cool down a few minutes, and then take their run over again. Chad and his team have opted to fire it up, stage it up, and make the run. So they brought the golf cart up, plugging the starter back in, and we're going to fire it up, adjust the idle, drop the body, pull in and stage, and let her rip. Breaker bar in there right now, backing the engine down as it's known. One thing you got to be very careful of in a nitro engine, and you'll notice when they're warming them up in the pits, and even when they did this one, they'll disconnect the fuel line off the barrel valve when they shut the engine down. Give it a shot of gasoline to make sure that all the nitro has run out of the engine, because you do not want to have a cylinder full of nitro when you hook the starter up and hit the switch. When they stick a breaker bar in and turn the engine over backwards, which is what they were just doing a minute ago, picture the big Hemi sitting under there. Picture where the exhaust valves are. The exhaust valve is way down in the bottom of the cylinder, speaking strictly from a gravity standpoint. When you turn the engine backwards, it'll open the exhaust valve, piston up at the top, and any raw fuel in the cylinder will simply run harmlessly down the header pipe. That's why they always turn them backwards before they plug a starter in and do it, and that's exactly what they were doing down there on the bond coat machine. And we should be ready to give her a shot and fire it up. I also mentioned gasoline, and fans, believe it or not, even though these things make 12,000 plus horsepower, the way they fire them up and the way they shut them off, good old 87 octane regular gasoline. The static compression in a nitro car is very low, so you don't need alcohol. Just give it a shot of gasoline and fire it up and then turn on the nitro. And when they shut them down, a little extra shot of gasoline. Obviously, once the driver hits the gas and the boost comes up, you've got a whole lot of cylinder pressure in there. But the static compression is very low. And regular gas will fire it up just fine, thank you. All right, looks like they opted to go back and grab a fuel jug. I think they're going to pour another gallon or so in. Another interesting thing to note about these cars, since we're doing nitro school here in the evening, the fuel tank is up front on both a funny car and a top fuel car, and the fuel tank is ballast. Nitro is very heavy, much heavier than water, and they utilize the fuel in the tank as ballast to balance the car. When a nitro car is idling, it is burning about 5 gallons of gas or nitro every minute. That's a gallon every 12 seconds at an idle. And since Chad Green's car idled longer than it normally would have, if it burned another gallon and a half or so off, that's going to upset the balance of the car, and that's why they brought the jug out there to top the thing off. It's not really a matter of putting more fuel in the car. It's a matter of putting the extra 20 pounds back on the front of the car. So we're going to fill it up, and we're going to fire it up. And the key to funny car downforce is the height of the tailgate. Always pay attention to the height of the tailgate. If they raise that way up between the spill plates in the back, then they are operating at maximum downforce, which also increases drag. When they lower that tailgate, that means they believe that they can achieve the traction they need without the extra downforce, or without the extra downforce, and so they trade off by less drag. I just want Chad to make a great run. After we sat here and waited and squared away and got everything taken care of, pull the tire loose. You saw it kind of swishing the tail. And Chad Green will stay in his number 9 qualifying spot. 397, the best he's put on the board so far. And starting with Blake Alexander will be able to start lining up some of the first-round matchups tomorrow.